What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to look at 8 games that were partially taken out or fully taken out in the last 12 months. And we're going to use taken out for at least the beginning of this YouTube video, so there's no funny business, online. But look, over the last little while, actually the last couple of years has really picked up. There's been a lot of games that have been brutally eliminated, okay? Whether it be just the multiplayer, component of it or the entire thing altogether. I kind of have a mix here. I have some games that are still playable, but maybe multiplayer was the main thing. Kind of a jack of all trades list here. And I think it's important. This is a channel dedicated to, retrospective content, game preservation. So when companies decide that games can just be tossed aside, I feel like, we look at a lot of positives, and a lot of games I think have aged really, really well over time. I also want to talk about some games that, were just kind of thrown away, and to highlight the importance of game preservation, okay? So let's start with a game, and this will be number 1. This isn't any, particular order or anything, but let's look at a game, Evolve, and I can't even believe this game was operational at any point beyond, when it kind of first came out. So there's a story here, right? I believe back in 2018, they shut the servers off in general, but there was a dedicated server for this game, and it was still going, and it was going from 2018 to last year. I think April of last year is when they shut the thing down. You could have fooled me. I got this game day one. I remember I created, the channel, my very first channel, Podcast Now, that year, and I got so excited because, I mean, it was just this player versus player thing that I thought was going to be epic with these hunters and the monster, and it turned out that the game was really bad. I mean, honestly, I was massively disappointed. I played with a group of my friends, we were all so ready for this, and we all hated it. In fact, we kind of got joy out of hating it collectively. So, was it a game that deserved to live that long? No, but the primary thing with this game is playing it online, playing it with others. So when you eliminate that, you do kill off the game. So this is an example of a game that technically has been dead for about 5-6 years, but last year they put the final nail in the coffin. Okay, next up, and we actually made a dedicated video on this, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's Dead Space 2's multiplayer. So this was actually killed off quite recently, I think in December, along with a couple other EA things, which, trust me, I got it. EA, in terms of preservation and all that, they were the greatest enemy, of the last 12 months, whether it was killing games entirely or killing the multiplayer part off. So Dead Space 2, look, was there anybody playing the Dead Space 2 multiplayer? Very few, probably under 100, to be honest with you. It's a game that's very old. I have to maybe look at it, but I think it might be the oldest or one of the oldest on the list. I think this was just that era of really cool. This was the era, okay, where the single-player thing was starting to be questioned a little, right? And it's well, you can't just have people buy a game to play an 8 to 10 hour single player. So you got to have a multiplayer element. And this birthed the Dead Space kind of era of multiplayer. Assassin's Creed, Uncharted had multiplayer, starting with Uncharted 2, right? So right around that 2008, 9, 10, right around there. I guess Batman Arkham Origins actually would be a really good example as well. This was that era of that you had to kind of do something. But you know what? That really sparked some entertainment. That really sparked, I guess, some creativity. These people actually figured it out. And I really liked the Dead Space 2 multiplayer. I played it back in the day when it first came out. Hadn't played it since. Tried to get in some matches. There was a whole the servers, and I believe for Dead Space 2 multiplayer specifically, I think you had to still have the code. It was during the era where you had to put in the code, remember, for multiplayer. So I think very limited people were even able to play the thing in the first place. And, okay, to be fair, the game is still alive, and it's probably also going to get remade at some point in the next 5-6 years. So the game itself is not dead. The multiplayer portion of it is, okay? And that leads us to the next one, which is kind of the same deal, Crysis 3. This is one I also remember every year, every summer, as I was into my teenage years, so probably 14, 15 on, every year in the summer leading into the next school year, I'm a crazy. I'm a freak, okay? And I would try to build up my sleep schedule and fix it. So the last month, I mean this, the last full month before school, I would wake up, and I would wake up at 7, 8 a.m. every single day to get myself ready. And sometimes I'd actually go even earlier. And I remember for the month of August, because we started in September, I would wake up, and for many years, I played multiplayer games. So Resistance 3 was a huge one for me, and Crysis 3 was a huge one. And every day, I'd play play the multiplayer, and I got insanely good at it. So I say that in terms of, it actually does have a connection to me. I love Crysis. I love Crysis in general, but Crysis 3 and Crysis 3 multiplayer specifically, phenomenal. And that was shut down, I believe, also just this past December. So the game was also kind of delisted. It was delisted on older platforms, so 360, PS3. I believe it's on Game Pass, so you can still do it there. I imagine maybe it's on the PlayStation Store if you look. Maybe it's not, though. Honestly, I've never checked before. I do have it physically. I got it physically, so I'm all good. But this is one that's like teetering right on the edge of death, right? Because for Dead Space, at least, that's kind of playable in many places. For something like this, you know, the options and the choices of getting this game are becoming less and less. Okay, so let's stick with EA while we're at it, right? Let's do Battlefield. Battlefield Bad Company 1, 2, and 1943. Now, I believe all three of these were on Game Pass. I played in fact, we made a video on Bad Company 2 on this channel. Such a good game. And the thing is, again, the single-player portions are okay. It's the multiplayer that was taken down. But, I mean, if you recall, especially Bad Company 2, okay, that's really the one that stands out. That's why I made a video on it. This is arguably one of, if not the best Battlefield games out there. And people still reference it to this day. It probably has the best story of all the Battlefield, you know, games. And it's just such a good game. The Vietnam, you know, DLC, it's popular. It was popular. Honestly, and I got to be real, I did play it about a month before it was taken offline. There is nobody playing it. And when I say nobody, I mean maybe 2 to 5 people, okay, playing this game online. Or they were playing the game online because it's not available. But it's still tragic, right, that a game that did have multiplayer no longer does. Again, you can get it physically, but I believe it has also been delisted. So this is another game that's actually 3. You get a 3-for-1 package, honestly, in this group here, kind of on life support. Because, again, now you got to go find it. You got to get it on PS3. You got to get it on 360. And the value there now is just a single player. Luckily, again, Bad Company 2, very, very good single player. I'm not a huge fan of Bad Company 1, but it does establish the characters. Okay, next up is a game that actually was just taken out, and I wanted to kind of do this just in 2023, but actually so far in 2024, you know, you got The Crew next month. That's not on this list, but it's still a thing that's about to completely die. But you also had, I believe in January, so they start off the year very, very strong, Spec Ops The Line. So Spec Ops The Line has been delisted. I got a story to tell with this one, okay? Kind of a venting situation. So, number one, I love Spec Ops The Line. I know not everybody's all that thrilled with it, but I think it's one of those PS3 360 era games, along with, I think about it, with Enslaved. I think about it with Vanquish. I think like that kind of, even like Sleeping Dogs, which I think was a little bit after it, but that kind of era of just really, in my opinion, really underappreciated games. And all of them, I think, are extremely good. Some of them didn't sell all that well. Some of them kind of went over people's heads. And they all, you know, were from the exact same era. So that'll always stand out. I did beat this game back when it came out. Freaking love it, okay? Really, really love it. And the story I have to tell in terms of like the modern day, well, it's been delisted, okay? So again, partially killed off. Now you can get it physically, and here's the deal. You know, I mentioned the Vanquish and Enslaved and all. I own over there to my left, I own all of them, okay? I bought them all physically. I have a spreadsheet that has all the games, you know, retro games that I want to collect, okay? And Spec Ops The Line is on that list. Now, I can tell you for a fact, because I've been, you know, keeping up, Spec Ops The Line was going for about $10 to $15, okay? It was on the list. I was ready to buy it. You know, I found all of these games in person. Sometimes I'll do Mercari. Sometimes I'll do in person. I find all these games. I never do Spec Ops The Line because I'm like, well, I'll get it eventually. It gets delisted. The price goes from $10 to $15 to now $60. This game is a $60 game. eBay, Mercari, anywhere. 60 plus, actually, with shipping and all that stuff. So if I would have just bought it, along with the rest of those gems of that era, I could have gotten it for about $50 to $60 less. So I'm really disappointed in myself. But the game is fantastic. I feel really bad, you know, it's taken off. And if anything, it just hurts, I'd say, collector. Well, it helps the people that are selling it, but it definitely hurts the people that want it, doesn't it? Okay, final 3. And the next one is a game that kind of died, but is fully going to get the death blow in 2024. It's a weird case. Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th, they talk about they're losing the license, and so you can't buy it anymore. That ended, I believe, just this past year. At the end of 2023, I think literally like New Year's Eve, you couldn't buy the game past that point. So if you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Look, I have it, okay? Thank God. But, however, the game fully dies because they're taking all the servers down this upcoming. So you get 1 year, right? Game dies on New Year's Eve. You can't buy it anymore from 2023. New Year's Eve 2024 is the last day the servers will be up, and then the game will be officially dead after that. I'm going to definitely make a video in December on this game. I mean, I love it. It actually was a big, Kickstarter, for the channel, for Podcast Now. Some of my biggest videos in terms of viewership and subscribers and all that stuff was Friday the 13th. And I played that game for about a month straight. I got super good at it. I loved it to death. I'll always have and even though it's a very flawed game, the bugs were not even hilariously bad. They were actually they made me angry about how badly optimized and the servers, and they never really figured that situation out. But it's a special game. It's a very special game that I had a blast with, and it'll always have, again, a connection to the channel, and then to me, again, playing it for a good solid month. Came out late May, I think, of 2017. I'm going to miss it, and I'm not ready to say goodbye to it yet because I still have it, right? So it's a game that we'll talk about as this year goes on. Partially killed, but it's not going to be killed until the very, very end of this year. And then there were two. So next up is Marvel's Avengers. I wanted to leave this kind of towards the end for... Now look, the game is still around, but they kill off all updates, and honestly, this game kind of died from just like the player base, and then it kind of got finished off, right, and died from the developers. So to call it completely dead is probably a lie. It was removed off of storefronts, so you can only get it physically. But this is like that, it's a newer age game. This is a 2020 game. A lot of people buy games digitally now, and not even just now, like over the last 5-6 years, as in now, right? So the amount of people that actually have Avengers physically, not many. And, with them no longer updating it, once you're done, the biggest part, considering it's a live service game, was to continue it, right? So you're waiting for content, you're waiting for updates to then play that stuff, and then you just rinse and repeat, right? So without that, you're kind of done. So the game, I mean, again, has it been fully killed? No, you can still play, and you can still play the single player, but the content and the longevity of it has been eliminated. And that leads us to the final one. If I were to rank these, I actually would put this, at the top, because this is a game that was flat out murdered in 2023, okay? It's Knockout City. It's actually one of the very first videos that we did on this channel, a year ago. It's the second biggest viewership, video on this channel. It's a game I really like. Dodgeball, right? It's basically Dodgeball, the game. And I think they actually nailed it. I don't know how that somebody comes up with that and actually implements it, well. I think it's probably been done before, in other games, but they nailed it. And I think it was complex without being complex. Like, there was only a few buttons. There's only a few things you really had to know. But it was a really fun game. And the reason this would be number one, right, is... Well, okay, actually, I believe out of all of these games listed, this one lasted the least amount. I believe this lasted 2 years. It was on the market. It was playable for 2 years. And again, there's been, at least one or two other games where the entire game has been eliminated, right? Like Friday the 13th eventually will be completely killed off. Knockout City was completely killed off, so that makes it a more, aggressive thing, right? The entire game's gone. You can't do it. But also, again, that longevity, how long, if it was out for 10 years and it was only multiplayer and you killed it after 10 years, you got more out of it than if you got, 2 years out of it. So this would be like the worst, I guess, the anti-game preservation. The reason why, we make these videos and we talk about it, it sucks because you bought it, you may have bought it, right? You buy it, you buy cosmetics, you buy whatever, some of the microtransactions, you put in however much money, and then they shut the entire thing down. Very disappointing. And honestly, there's that part, and that part I despise. That's why I don't really like live service or always online type games. But then you have, I actually think this is a really good game. If I were to rank, live service, Rocket League is up there on my list and things, Dead by Daylight. But this game was really unique and really fun, and I didn't want it to die, and then it did so quickly. So that's why it needed to be. If there was a ranking to it, it would need to be number one. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.